Welcome back to the CEO Advantage podcast. Welcome back, Millie.
Thanks, Paul.
It's fantastic to have Millie, my co-host, here again. Today we have David Bowley from Vinteloper. David, if you don't know Vinteloper, it's at Adelaide Hills winery. I first met David and the Vinteloper crew at Pinot-Palooza in Melbourne, and they were definitely the most enthusiastic crew there on the day. Beautiful, beautiful wines. And now, recently opened a fantastic venue in the Adelaide Hills. Just go up Gorge Road and on Cuddly Creek Road. You'll love it. It's fantastic for a Saturday morning. Welcome, David.
Welcome.
Thanks, Paul and Millie. Lovely to sit with you guys, and let's dive in.
Let's go. We asked the same question of everybody on our podcast at the beginning. David, what was the first job you got paid for?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the first job you get paid for really does teach you a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the first job I got paid for that taught me something that was meaningful was I was a basketball referee. And so I reckon the game was like 45 minutes. I reckon we got $3 for a game.
Yeah.
And so you'd go and you'd do 4 or 5 games and you'd get $10 or $12. And that was a hard-earned $12, but it taught me a lot about time management. It taught me the value of time. That's what those first jobs teach you, isn't it? The value of your time. And so to learn that at the age of 12 or whatever I was, put me in a good place for my next job and my next job after that, I think. Yeah.
Fantastic. It just reminded me, one of my first jobs was as a boundary umpire, but I used to play footy in the morning, and then boundary umpire for 2 games. I just get tired of thinking about the idea of running.
I've had that experience too. Yeah, it was exhausting. I know that I hated boundary umpiring because you had to run so much,
so far.
Yeah,
David, let's start at today. We don't normally do that. I just want to give the audience a picture of Vinteloper and who you are and what you do, and then we'll go back to your basketball refereeing and work our way back and close the gap in the middle.
All right.
But tell us a little bit about Vinteloper and what it is and what you do there.
Wow. There's a long answer to this question. I'll try and give you the abridged version.
We got time. Just
Great.
Go for it.
Vinteloper, we exist to make your life better. That's basically it in a nutshell. One of our taglines is fun on the outside, serious in the bottle. So that gives you a hint as to what we do. We grow, we make and we sell wine from the Adelaide Hills in South Australia. We are the ringleaders of grown-up fun. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, I think. But, we're a brand that exists because wine, the thing that we do, just enhances life's experiences. It enhances food. It enhances culture. So we sum it up. We say, we make people's lives better. That's what we do. Pretty grand and a bit over the top, but there's plenty of other people out there talking about how we make wine and it's terroir and it comes from this soil and yada yada. We do that stuff. Yes, we do that stuff. But what I actually want people to know about Vinteloper is that we're there to make things better. We're there to enjoy it. We enjoy what we do.
Yeah.
And because frankly, if we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
You don't make great fortunes out of owning wineries, but you do have a pretty enjoyable life. And so that's really where we focus in at Vinteloper. The Vinteloper itself was founded 17 years ago.
There you go.
So we're now a brand that's been around, and this feels so weird to say 17 years because I still am stuck in the 28-year-old founder mindset.
Yeah.
But 17 vintages of making wine and trying to be better at it every single day, every single month, and every single year.
Yeah.
And really honing in on what it says in that tagline. So fun on the outside, absolutely, but the Vinteloper wines are serious in the bottle, and I think that's one of the things that sets us apart. One of our USPs.
So to be in business, any business for 17 years is successful on its own. And there's a lot of the old throwaway line in winemaking: how do you make a small fortune in wine? You take a large one and you invest in wine.
Yep.
And so to be around for 17 years in itself is there's so much in that we'll unpack today. In terms of making when David says about making your life better, Kirsten and I a couple of Saturdays ago just went, what are we going to do? The sun's out, it's a beautiful day. And we sat at Vinteloper looking at this really funky ute parked in front of the vineyards in this beautiful, beautiful tasting room. And just went, life doesn't get much better than sitting at 11 o'clock in the morning about to taste wine and seeing the sun over the Adelaide Hills. Just amazing. So let's go back, David. Did you play basketball? And was that part of when you were at school? Where'd you go to school?
Absolutely. I played basketball. Yes. I went to school here in Adelaide.
Yep.
Grew up in Adelaide and later in life moved around and went other places and did other things. But basketball is in my body, in my blood. My whole family played or plays basketball.
Yeah.
My three sisters, I'm one of four. I'm the eldest of four.
Mm-hmm.
They all played National League. One of my sisters has multiple National League championships. One of the others represented Australia. They're all incredibly accomplished athletes. I was less accomplished, but tried very hard.
Yeah.
So I played state league here in South Australia for a decade, and loved it. Came to basketball a little bit later in life, so grew up here. Went to school at Sacred Heart College, down in what is that, Glenelg, I guess.
Yeah.
And a big AFL school.
Yeah.
Obviously. But I was part of the basketball program there, and still have close friends from school, as lots of us do. That's an Adelaide thing, isn't it?
Yeah. But a high performance mindset across all of your siblings, you included, huh?
Well, when you have a family of six, when there's four kids, competitive behaviour becomes a daily occurrence. So I think that served all of us quite well through our later years. Yeah.
So how did you went straight from school to then study, and wine was obviously on your agenda.
Yeah.
How for lots of young people coming to finishing year 12, going through year 11 and 12, and even their first year at uni, it's really hard to have a clue really what you want to do.
Yep.
But you clearly did, because you found it, you went and studied it, and you stayed in it. But I just saw the wince on his face, like, well, I think there's a story here.
Yeah, there is a story here. So I would put myself firmly in the category of not knowing, but doing the thing that was most attractive at the time, most likely at the time, leaning into the skills that I had. Some people who were cynical would say that I followed the path of least resistance, which is a totally appropriate thing for an 18-year-old.
Absolutely.
Because I was as a student good at sciences and the things like that, not so good at some of the other stuff. So I was attracted to a science-based degree. I wanted to do something that was interesting. I think around that time that I was finishing high school, which is end of the 90s, start of the 2000s, it's kind of pre-social media era. It's kind of, I think of it as this era when we were all kind of sold this dream that we could have this career that no one of previous generations had before, and that we were going to do different things. And that's certainly what I remember. And so thinking about studying winemaking, I was like, well, that sounds like a job which would be awesome, because you'd be doing different stuff all the time, outside, inside, making things, something tangible at the end. When many careers now, especially now in the 2025, arguably there's no tangible result of the hours that are invested. So I was very attracted to that. Then when it comes to, 17 years later, or it's much more than that now, it's 25 years later, still being in that area of expertise, I think it's just because it's evolved for me. I was a winemaker. I was on the tools for a decade, and then did different things, worked at Wine Australia for 6 or 7 years and learned the other side of wine, all about export and the business. And then went on the entrepreneurial journey. And that's really where I find myself today is I don't make the wine now. I employ someone to do that who, I'll get this in early in our discussion. I really believe that you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. Yeah. If you find yourself in a room and then you're the smartest person, you're in the wrong room. Yeah, so, I've worked on building a team of people around me who are smarter than me, who are more equipped to do those parts of the business. And these days, I'm very much more in the entrepreneur, business operator space than I am in the winemaking space. Obviously, that's the part that really still lights me up. Growing grapes and making wine. I love getting into the winery. It's just not as much of what I do anymore.
Yeah. So David, when was it? So when you were working at Wine Australia, I presume that was in your 20s, mid-20s.
That's right.
When did the penny drop? You're like, I'm going to start my own business. When was that moment?
It would have been in 2009. So in the late 2000s, Wine Australia was flying. Australia as a wine country was flying. Exports were massive. And so Wine Australia was the sort of the government authority that headed up all of export. And the way that Wine Australia was funded was through the volume of exports. Levies were paid and that went into a pool and Wine Australia could spend that. And so it was a good time to be there, right? And I was in this role where it was a technical role doing compliance work, which was part of the supporting framework around the marketing of Australian wine, being that, if we can go internationally and say, we've got this compliance framework and we actually check people and blah, 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 then we can say that our quality is being pushed up. And I was in that role and it just seemed limited to me. That role just seemed like it was a good job, well paid, respected, not particularly challenging, not particularly fulfilling. And I was at a crossroads at that point because I'd been there for a few years and I was starting to get like, this doesn't really have the creativity that I want. It doesn't really have the layers of interest that I want. This is a great job it was cushy in many ways, right? But I think I realize this now. I'm actually just a very creative person. I like creating stuff, and that job didn't fulfill that area at all. And they brought in a consultant to like make everyone better in the business and kind of that whole, interview for your own job kind of situation. And so I sat with this person and interviewed by this stage, I'd already started making some wine, right, for Vinteloper, but it was tiny then, tiny.
Little side hustle.
Very, very early stages, maybe the first year. And I explained that I was doing that. And at the end of all this conversation, I remember this clearly. She said to me, "Why do you still work here?
Yeah, right.
You've told me about all the stuff you do and you've told me about all the stuff you do outside. It sounds, and when you talk about that, you get really excited and I can see that. So what are you still doing here?" I think, I was 27, I think, at the time. I never thought about that question. But that day I thought about it and I took that home and thought about it very deeply. And I think it was within 12 months. There was a bit of a process. That seed was planted. And then within a year I resigned. Yeah.
There's something that happens for really entrepreneurial people and really successful people who are successful founders where they don't behave like normal people. They want better. They want to push themselves. And David we've heard this regularly throughout the podcast. David had a cushy job. He could stay in that. Lots of people who would be sensible people would say, you're set, keep doing it. But our really successful founder entrepreneurs find themselves in a comfortable, cushy spot and then are dissatisfied with that.
And not as fulfilled, like you were saying.
Not fulfilled. And here we are again hearing this thing. It's So a question I ask regularly of founders is, when did you realize you weren't normal, when you were not going to behave like normal people who stick in a cushy job?
Yeah, I expected this question. I don't know specifically if I ever felt normal.
Ah,
Yeah, that, as I've reflected on the journey, I think in every job that I've had since, I was a basketball referee, I was always looking for a way to grow that, whatever that was, and to make that, to enhance that, make it better, get more out of it.
yeah.
And I think that's actually what we do as business owners and leaders and entrepreneurs is that, right? We try to make more out of less.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I do a lot of work at the moment and you're seeing this geopolitically, where people are lurching towards certainty because everything's so dynamic. So they become certain about things, even if they're not. They just sort of invent certainty. Yet the really great leaders and entrepreneurs go the complete opposite way, and they lean into curiosity and going, well, what if we did it this way, or what if we did it better? What if, as opposed to looking for ways to become more secure or more certain, it's a lean away from that, and it's a risk appetite that over time you become comfortable with.
Yeah.
But at times it can be scary for family members or friends or people around you that your risk appetite doesn't match sometimes the pace of life, right? Have you found that? Have you had times where your risk appetite is different from the people you know?
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
How's that shown itself for you?
It's shown itself on both sides actually of that coin. So back to what we were talking about of sort of how did this journey begin? It was around that 2007, 8, 9 that my now wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, Sharon, she was finishing her medical degree at Adelaide University, and she was going to be moving on to study surgery, getting into surgical training, and that meant leaving Adelaide and exploring the next opportunities wherever they were. And first off, it was Melbourne. She already knew, like, I'm moving to Melbourne next year. This was in 2010. We were talking about this, and we hadn't been together heaps long at that time, but it was a strong relationship. And so her risk appetite around that time was like, hey, I'm leaving. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And if you want to be on this train, you better buy a ticket. And so part of that was, like, okay, well, if you're going to do this business, you should do it, and you should leave that job, because that job's not coming. You're not taking that job to Melbourne. You're not coming if you stay in that job. So that's really interesting that risk appetite equation was like, yeah, let's take that risk.
Yeah.
Much later, in 2018, when we were talking about buying this vineyard, this property, or 2017, we bought it in 2018. She was very much against it, which is interesting because we managed to pull it off. We did manage to make it happen, but she still reminds me of that today, that when there's problems, she's like, well, I said you should never buy. So, it's manifested it in both ways there. But I think, every business owner, founder has probably had the family member who said, oh, you shouldn't do that, it's so risky.
Yeah.
I
think all three of us are in that, like, entrepreneur, like, probably all have a partner that's a bit more of that conservative, looking at the numbers. That
I'm really, really proud to share, on this topic, that my sister, who I talked about, who played, she represented Australia in basketball, she's 40, what is she, 42. She's always worked for other people, but she's the most talented person I know, right? She's incredible.
Yeah.
And for more than a decade, I've been saying, you need to go and work for yourself. You need to go and work for yourself. And she's always been like, nah, too risky. I need the paycheck, blah, blah. By the time this comes out, she will be fully self-employed, finally.
Yeah.
Taking that, in that case, hopefully one day she'll be sitting in this chair and reflecting on how her brother just hounded her
Yes.
and hounded her to be
Yep.
more, more open to taking those risks.
That's fantastic. My brother also encouraged me to start Milko, my business as well. So that's, I love that kind of family sibling, like, yes, do it. Yeah.
But someone else in your family probably said, don't do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Or someone close to you, and in her case, she has that as well. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So let's go back a few years to Vinteloper, the name, and we'd love to pursue the beautiful way that you've branded and marketed and telling those stories. But can we go right to the start of you mentioned Vinteloper was your side hustle when you had a job. So the name existed.
Yep.
Tell us about, let's start the Vinteloper journey as a business and a brand.
Yeah.
And I'd like to explore along the way as we unpack that, how the way you express your brand and that brand messaging. I'd like to understand how that is that influenced by your leadership style, or is your leadership style influenced by it, or is it, so just to explore, because it's really ingrained. And for listeners and viewers, go to the Vinteloper website and have a look at the language that David uses. It's just this beautiful language about beyond wine. It's really cultural. So, but when did you come up with the name Vinteloper?
Yep.
And how did it evolve? Was your original idea for it to have all of this, or did it evolve in time?
It's a great question. So the name came to me just in the very early stages, when I was, developing the concept of this business. One of the things that I knew with absolute certainty was I was not going to name it after myself or after it's just there's two major problems with that. One, it's the height of arrogance. Two, it's not really saleable. Right. So I knew very clearly about that. The other things that I knew were that I wanted to do things my way. I'd gained a lot of inside knowledge about the wine industry through my time at Wine Australia, about what wines worked from where, what wines work from a consumer standpoint. And I felt that so many people were doing it wrong, which is how I still feel. That didn't necessarily translate directly to the name, but in the idea, it's sort of, there was this ideation process around a name, and by a process of, well, you're not calling it after yourself, you're not going to follow the traditional path, you're not going to do, just throwing ideas around. And I was familiar with the word interloper from my time at Sacred Heart College, which is hilarious, but I'm not into metal music at all, or heavy metal, or I don't even know if that's what you call it. Maybe it's called punk, but there was a band called the Mark of Cain, and they had a song called Interloper. And I have no idea what the song's about, to be honest with you, but it was a famous song of theirs, and we all knew of it amongst our friendship group. And I was curious about the word interloper way back then, so I, found out its meaning. And then, I just got struck by lightning one day. Like vin for vin for all things wine is vin. It's the French. It covers a lot of it, doesn't it? And then interloper, because culturally, that's what I wanted Vinteloper to be.
Yeah. So for those who might be driving along listening to this podcast, who don't know what interloper means,
which is most people, what does interloper mean? An interloper is these days you would call him a disruptor, I suppose. Historically, it's someone who comes into an established regime, an established order, and ignores those rules or conventions and just does their own thing.
Big ballsy question. How can we talk about disruption for a little bit?
Yeah.
How do you feel like you're disrupting the wine sector? Because I feel like you've made a couple of comments, like, you're doing things differently. There's some out there that are,
I think it's Really great question. And I think about this often because I think, especially since we've opened the tasting room, we continue to drift back to the normal, what other people are doing. And I'm very conscious of that at the moment. So I think we could be doing a better job of that is my initial thought and answer.
Better job of disruption or better job of being normal?
No, better job of disruption. Yeah, I think the tasting room has brought us back to more normal.
Yeah.
But it's intentional. Like there's this push and pull here, right? When you open a beautiful tasting room like it is, you need to, you're going to ask me a question about music later. The OJs say it beautifully. You got to give the people what they want. I'm not going to try and sing it, but you can lay that over in the audio maybe. So we open this beautiful tasting room. We scream from the rooftops about it, and then there's a very real danger that if you're too disruptive, people come, they don't come again. They get alienated. So there's a push and pull there. There's a balance you got to find. But I'm waffling a little bit, but to be more specific to your question, how do we disrupt? I think it's the way we communicate, right? We don't communicate the way that other wineries communicate or businesses maybe. I think the way that we, to a lesser degree now, but the way that we've always packaged our wines has been a way of disruption. Only a couple of years ago, just like a small tweak to our packaging was we removed all branding off of the front of our bottles. So
you just had the artwork.
It's just an artwork.
Yep. Wow,
yeah.
Cool.
And people in retail still get freaked out. We'll often go into a retail store and find a bottle of Vinteloper, and then it'll be turned around so that all the back label information is facing the front, because that's where it says the brand, it's where it says the vintage, it's where it says the variety. So we'll often be turning them back around. But that's one way. The communications piece goes across website, social, email, mailing list, those sorts of things. It goes across tasting room. I think even one of my staff said this to me the other day about the tasting room. She's like, when you come here, it's unlike every other tasting room.
Yeah.
The most similar one is not like this.
Again, for somebody who doesn't goes to the occasional tasting room, what does that mean? What does it mean that you're not like? So what is the tasting room expectation that is conventional?
Yeah.
And what is it that you're not that is not conventional? Help our listeners understand what that means as a difference.
I'll be quite general, but when you go to every other tasting room, you might stand at a bar and be served by someone across a bar or across a table. That's a very common occurrence, I think, particularly if you go to the lots of wine regions. But I'm thinking of the Barossa, I'm thinking of McLaren Vale. You will walk in and you'll stand there and they'll talk to you and they'll pour you a few tastings, and
pretty standard format.
Pretty standard.
Yeah.
When you visit Vinteloper, it's like walking into someone's home. It's a very nice, very, very luxurious home at the moment. Hopefully we'll keep it that way. But you're invited really to just relax and feel at home. And then we'll come to you and you can enjoy your experience from there are lots of different moments around our tasting room, places to sit, enjoy, spend time. And then the wine sort of informs that, and vice versa.
In my 25 years as a CEO, one of the hardest things to find was a consulting and advisory firm where they'd actually been CEOs. I created CEO Advantage to be the advisory firm I was looking for. Go to ceoadvantage.com.au and find out how we can help you and your team be the best in the business.
So I feel like Vinteloper, at every touch point, you're feeling your brand.
Yeah.
From you hopping onto the website to at the cellar door and I love that. Like, I really admire that from your brand. You've done such a good job.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm really proud of the way that we do that. I think it's super important though, right? Because every touch point is a way that you can reduce buyer's resistance. There's this concept of buyer's resistance and buyer's acceptance. And it applies across every business. Doesn't matter if you're selling wine or real estate or whatever.
Yeah.
Software as a service. People need to, you need to think of ways and find ways to chip away at their natural resistance to spending money and being part of your brand. And you need to think of ways to give them confidence to be a part of it. And so it's all intentional. Yeah.
When you first started Vinteloper at 28, did you have this vision that I suppose your tagline, which is fun on the outside, serious in the bottle or something? Is that what it is?
You nailed it. Yep. Well
yeah.
done. Easy to remember.
Yeah, I love it. So did that, because that I feel like is, underpinning the culture of what you're all about as a founder and what the whole team is in the company. Did that come about when you first started at 28 years old, that messaging, or did
Absolutely not.
No. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
no. So my journey there, I'm still full of imposter syndrome, so don't be fooled. But
It's also what Vinteloper is.
Yeah, that's true.
Things really kicked off for me in this space in 2015. So we're a somewhat mature business already by that stage.
Yeah.
In 2015, Sharon and I moved to New Zealand and we lived in Auckland for 12 months. And I had a lot of time to myself because she was working 70 plus hours a week every week. And we were in New Zealand, so I knew no one. And I found my way into an entrepreneurial program run by a crew in Sydney. And it was through that. It was a 2-year program. It was through that I started to understand. Now, a lot of this stuff already existed in Vinteloper, but all of a sudden I was able to identify, hey, these are our values. Hey, this is our vision. Hey, this is our mission. Hey, this is our tagline. This is how we reduce buyers' resistance. This is how we increase buyers' acceptance. And it was from that point that I started to find ways to weave that into the business. And that was a huge part of why we are now where we are.
There's a lot that somebody, even running their own business or thinking about running their own business or in their professional career, can take away from what David just said then. And this is this notion of what is implicit in your business or implicit in your work and starting to become intentional about it. So the implicit becomes explicit. And David just talked about it then, and lots of people miss this pivotal moment in the way you communicate, think. And they say, let's do a strategy, and you come up with this glossy document and it never works. Like, why is that? It's partly because the implicit never became explicit, and when it's not explicit, it can't become intentional.
Yeah.
But all of that is in evidence in what you're doing, and just in that little sentence there, that you can see it all start to come out when it's like, the mechanics of the business work like this, the mechanics of the culture work like this, the mechanics of communication work like this. And once you break it down, you can then share it beyond yourself and escape the trap of being the locus of control, being you. But you started straight away without saying, I'm not going to be the locus of control of this business.
I still fight for that every day.
Yeah. So tell us about that. Tell us what that fight sounds like or looks like.
Yeah, well, it's a real tough battle for the point of time that we're currently in, because the culture that you set up can only take you so far in a founder-led business. At the size we are, there's a size play here. We're not a large business. We have 10 employees. It's 7-figure turnover, but it's not close to being 8-figure turnover by a long way. So as I feel it's important in this growth phase that we're currently in with the tasting room opening, which, potentially adds 50% to the top line revenue as like that, so it's an important time to stay engaged. It's an important time to set the systems but it's also an important time to give enough to the people who need it, enough rope, enough whatever. So I don't know if I'm answering the question particularly
there's
well.
There's an article, a Harvard article that was written way back in the 60s called "Evolution and Revolution as Organizations Grow." And for me, it was a great discovery. I've read that article hundreds of times and handed it out hundreds of times, because I think and the reason for that is it depicts the way a business evolves from startup, and it does this smooth and then it hits its first revolution, and then you iron it out and it's smooth a bit, and then you hit the next revolution, and you go through these patches where, as the business grows, it becomes less profitable, less fun, harder to run. And then if you can survive it, you get to the other side and it smooths out, and you think, oh, well, this is nice. And then lots of businesses have traumatic experiences during those revolutions, and that's when they even out. They go, oh, I'm bumping up against this thing. I'm making enough money now, and there's a weird patch that your business gets to where it's too big to be small and too small to be big. But the pain and risk now associated with going through the next revolution that you know is going to be painful gets harder and harder, doesn't it? Because the stakes are higher.
The stakes are higher. You should read that article. You need to send that to me.
I will. I'll send it to you. But the really good thing about that article as well is that it has a table that goes along with each of those revolutions, and it talks about how your management style changes. And lots of people fail to make those management changes because they didn't do what you've done, and that is to make the implicit explicit. We can say, I can break it down into these pieces, and now I know when I take on debt now to a business that didn't have such big debt into a tasting room, my behavior is going to be influenced now by
the stakes.
Repayments. The stakes are higher. It also affects your entrepreneurial skill set because it changes what you're able to do, doesn't it? From when you were, I remember in the SYC journey, when we had nothing to lose, we behaved a certain way, and as a result of that, we became successful and built something to lose. And then you start to tighten up a little bit, and you go, oh, but now we're changing our winning formula because we've got something to lose, and transcending that idea of how do I behave like I've got nothing to lose when I've got something to lose now. And that's another revolution. But it's not a revolution just in the business. It's a revolution in you, in your heart and mind. And it's not one that the textbooks prepare you for until you're living it. And you're kind of 6 months into
I feel like you've just described my last 12 months. But it's part of the job of the founder, I think, and part of the job of the leader is to absorb those those waves of disruption and let the team be the team and do their job. Like they don't change their winning formula because of what's going on back there. And that's I'm the buffer, right?
Yeah.
I can be the buffer. I can lie awake at night thinking about the winning formula and should we change it and are we taking enough risk? But they can go out there and they can do it. Yeah. And so that's what I've learned in the last 6 to 12 months, particularly about myself and about business and running business. But I'm by no means the expert, that's for sure.
But equally, it's a lot of people see tension and that tension and try and avoid it and try and smooth things over. But entrepreneurs lean into that tension, and you've talked about it. And part of leaning into that tension is you absorb a lot of punishment that people don't see you absorb, and in large part, you're not supposed to let people see you, but you absorb it. And there are days, I'm sure it hasn't happened to you. I know it's happened to me. Where there are days when you go, I shortened my life today because I soaked up so much stress and still had a smile on my face, and I know I hurt myself today. So I hope it's worth it. And of course, you make it worth it. But have you ever had that sort of sense of, oh my goodness, I'm hanging on to this with a smile on my face, but feel like I want to scream?
Perspective is a wonderful thing. I have 3 small children who I So the first part of perhaps where we should have started is that, my name's David Bowley and I'm a stay-at-home dad, right?
Yeah, cool.
So on top of all this, I actually am a stay-at-home carer for my 3 boys. My wife works full-time, the aforementioned beautiful Sharon. She's a vascular surgeon these days and a very good one. So we decided some years ago that our path would be for me and for our business to support her aspirations to be the best surgeon that she could be. Maybe this was the risk discussion we were talking about before, but that seemed like a low risk strategy.
Yeah.
Now we have a successful business and so we've kind of got a foot in both camps. Anyway, the point of the story is perspective is a wonderful thing. I've had that discussion with myself about my life was shortened today, but I've never had that discussion in business. It has been with looking after my 3 kids, which I love. Like, it's not a comment that I don't love them, of course. But they're 1, 2.5, and 6. And they're 3 boys, and it's intense. It's intense. And I think it's a great perspective, actually. I tell the story, it kind of sounds negative, but I'm trying to make it a real positive here. Like, we're talking about business. We're not talking about lives. We're not talking about, this stuff. So yeah, I take much more seriously my role as their father, and carry much more stress probably from that than I do from the business.
It is brilliant. What a brilliant perspective. And that is, you've seen, like, we're just talking about business. Kids and family, that's serious business. Being a surgeon is serious business. And their serious life and death. This is just business. And it's very stimulating and it's very interesting, but it's a bit like sports. And you go, it's like life and death sports. No, it's not. It's just sports.
Yeah.
Yes, lots of people love it, but it's just sports. What a wonderful perspective.
Yeah, you've nailed it. Sport is completely fulfilling. It's wonderful to be so competitive, but when the siren blows, that's it. That's the end, and you go back to the really important stuff.
Yeah.
So 3 boys. So they must be so into the business. Like, did they come along to Vinteloper HQ?
I almost, if it was acceptable, my 1-year-old would have probably been sitting next to me today. He was he's teething, so he's having a tough time. But not so much yet. That's coming, I think. I look forward to sort of 5 years from now, when they're, 5, 7, and 12, and they're driving the tractor and having all those kinds of experiences, which will be which will set them up for so much success, I think.
So how do you do it? Because I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-month-old baby, and they I'll have my Zoom meetings with the baby. You've met my baby Mabel, breastfeeding at meetings. Like, it just has to be done if you have your own business and want to be there for your kids as well. So how do you do both? Yeah,
it's a good question. It's very, very tough. Very, very tough. It's part of our culture, right? To be all about this sort of stuff. Everyone in my team has a child who's under 6. So that helps. Everyone knows what everyone else is going through. I don't sleep very much. I got up this morning at 2:45. Oof. So, and I spent 2 hours on cash flow this morning.
Wow.
So it's not glamorous. Get very little sleep, drink a lot of coffee, and think about the future a lot. Just try to stay in the game. I try to look after myself, right? So I put, sometimes it's very hard to practice what you preach, but if I could sum it up, I put my self-care as my top priority. So part of the reason for getting up this morning at 2:45 was to give myself the hour that I needed to sit down, read my book for 10 minutes, journal for 10 minutes, take a shower without being interrupted, have a coffee without being interrupted, and set myself up mentally for the day. Yeah. And that's sort of 45 minutes that if I take that 45 minutes or whatever sacrifice I make for sleep, that 45 minutes of sleep that I don't get, the energy that I get from that will last me the day. If I've tried, because there's been days when you're like, oh, the alarm goes off, it's whatever time. My alarm's set for 4, generally in the morning. Alarm will go off at 4 and you just be like, oh man, I've been up 3 times in the night. I've had barely any sleep. Today I'm just going to sleep in. And you sleep in until one of the kids wakes you up. And then all of a sudden it's, for me, this is not the same for everyone, but it's on.
Yeah.
It's just like on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm frazzled. My energy levels are not where they need to be. I haven't filled my cup, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I take that 45 minutes and I fill my cup. I look at it like you have a limited amount of, imagine you have a vessel, a cup, and that cup contains all of the things that you need to give to these 3 kids and your wife and your business and your well-being. If you never take time to put anything in that cup, pretty soon the cup's going to be empty. So my 45-minute routine in the morning, it fills my cup to its absolute brim so that I've got enough in it to distribute it throughout the day. That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to take this one up. But I can imagine this 45-minute window that you have. Like, you're a creative guy. Like, that's probably when your creative tap is on and you're just seeing this clarity, this insights in business is just flowing in that 45 minutes.
Yep.
That probably will last you, like you said, for the whole day. Like, tell me about like what goes on in your mind during that 45 minutes. Do you get ideas for the business growth? Or?
Yeah, a lot goes on during that time. And so part of the practice is to as much as possible block that out and to a certain point. So for me, the journaling practice, which I do almost first thing, that is just about me. That's not about business. That's not about the things on the to-do list. That's not about anything else, what's happening that day. That's just, hey, how you doing? Checking in with myself. What kind of person are you going to show up as today? All that sort of stuff. So the voices are always there, right? The other voices, oh, what about this? What about that? Blah, blah, blah. Don't forget this, payroll today, yada, yada. But the practice has just been blocking those things out. They're just all internal voices, right? This is just the basis of control. The only thing that you can control is what's in there. Whether the kids wake up at 4:30 or 5:30 or 6:30 or 7:30 is not of your doing. So we're going way off of business here and into psychology, but as it relates to high performance, I've found it to be the most critical thing I've done since becoming a father, sort of discovering these routines that I can do to give me this energy. So I block out that stuff. I have 2 notebooks side by side. One's my journal, which is just, hey, how you doing? Checking in. The other notebook is for the voices when they come in. What about this idea? What about that idea? You should be doing this. Have you done that? I will, if I find them really invasive, I can quickly write them down and then get back to the real work. Yeah.
Love that. That's great.
Yeah. It's, and you preempted the question was what do you create? So you write in books, not on a laptop?
No. I've tried doing it digitally. That it doesn't. I don't know what it is, but the tangible feedback of pen on paper it just works.
Yeah,
your style, isn't it, Paul?
That's my style. I carry. It's funny. I have a journal in the front of my bag. It's satchel. It's got my laptop in it, and it's got the work that I'm doing. Whatever, and I've got a book for each bit of the work that I'm doing that's all different. But in the front of it is a journal. And when my brain is too full of things or the cup gets too empty, but I've got too many things on my mind, part of the reminder that myself and my family are the most important things is to then write what's happening today in my journal. So what am I thinking? Why am I feeling flat or feeling elevated or whatever? Just to pause for a moment and become intentional about how I'm feeling in that moment. And it's interesting over time. I rarely read back into the journal, but when I do, I'm like, that was interesting. What I was thinking then and how I was feeling and how regularly I felt it. But also by documenting it, it's that making it implicit, explicit. It's like, oh, I dealt with that feeling once before. Here's how I did it then. And it becomes a compounding skill set, doesn't it? That both in an intentional self-care rather than allowing yourself. I've done the thing where I've had chronic fatigue. I've given myself depression. I've done those things where you grind yourself into the ground and you try and over-try. It's a sport analogy. It is sometimes with golf, for example, you get frustrated, so you work even harder and make it worse. I've done that at work where I've gone, oh, that's not working. I'll work harder. And then I'll work harder, and it just gets worse and worse. And you think, oh, then you get sick. And then, but through journaling and learning, you sort of go, oh, I'm not going to push harder now. I'm not making myself sick and tired is going to be really unproductive.
Well, I think the self-care piece and the piece you're talking about there is you've got to sharpen your axe, right? You can turn up and you can swing your axe for 12 hours a day, but wouldn't you be better off to spend the first hour sharpening your axe, and then for every time you swing it, that axe is intentional? And probably at the end of the day, the guy who sharpens his axe has probably chopped more wood than the guy who just came out and swung and was like, I'm just going to swing it harder and more and faster. And, it's easy when you put it in those terms to understand.
So, David, why do you made a comment before about imposter syndrome? Like, how and why?
Because why do I have imposter syndrome? Because this business is still not successful because
by what measure is it not successful?
By the measure that that's a great question. I mean, because I'm not trained, I don't have an MBA. I don't have one.
No.
To put it into words is hard. It's because everyone says don't do things, right? It's the can't. It's the can't. It's the can't. It's the can't. And so you're like, well, after a while, you're like, maybe you can't. Maybe
you can't be successful. You don't have an MBA.
I don't know. I think hard one to answer. It's a part of being an entrepreneur, isn't it? I mean, every entrepreneur probably has imposter syndrome to an extent. Maybe not Elon Musk, but everyone else.
Well, it's an interesting it's an interesting cognitive dissonance you're holding there, because you talked about filling your cup and talked about self-care. You talk about culture and it comes through in the language around the business. Yet imposter syndrome sometimes makes you the worst boss ever because it's so critical. It pushes and I know when I've spoken to people and they said, oh, I just want to be happy. And I said, well, do it then. You just decide. Don't make happiness something where you're going. But equally that imposter syndrome, that voice of that drives you because it's not good enough and I'm not there yet. So by what measure is it not successful? I would suggest that from an outside point of view, go, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you're award winning. Like how many awards has Vinteloper won?
I don't know. I haven't counted them.
Yeah, exactly. Countless awards. You sound like you've got this amazing team that you can really rely on, this beautiful culture. Like, so when I hear, statements like this, but I guess,
and it happens though, right? It's that cognitive dissonance of going, look at all this self-care, and then in the same voice, there's this, but it's still not good enough.
When you start something from zero and you build it up, at some point you're always expecting someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and be like, I know that you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. Right. And that's just still where I am a little bit.
Which is why, I feel like you're so creative and why you are disrupting the wine sector, because you aren't playing it by a certain book. You're in your own lane, doing things differently. And that's why, you're really going to change things for the best. Yeah.
Well, I hope so. But also, on this imposter thing, I think there's a part of you that has to recognize that you need to be grateful for that, because that drives you to keep on pushing and keep on disrupting.
Yeah. So it does, and it brings gratitude, doesn't it? That when you're successful, you're like, I'm gonna enjoy this moment because I feel like it might not be there tomorrow. For whatever irrational reason it is. But if it brings about gratitude as opposed to stress, it's actually the imposter syndrome is a beautiful reminder as well to be grateful for today.
Yes.
And to, tomorrow I'll try harder and I might be better tomorrow, but today was a win. Younger me, I don't know about you, Dave, but younger me was less kind about that. I was like, well, today wasn't good enough, I've got to do better. But as time has gone by, living with imposter syndrome and going, oh, today was a win. It was good. I'll be happy, and I'll be grateful if it's still there tomorrow.
Yeah, well, because I think time, in the case of Vinteloper, 17 years, we touched on it. The imposter syndrome was much easier to believe in year 2 and year 4 and year 6. But and it's been dawning on me since we opened the tasting room, and I have much more time interacting with customers, real face-to-face customers. And, you're like, yeah, we've been around for 17 years. Every time I think I say that, the imposter syndrome that's in here just goes, oh, shit. He's going to figure it out eventually. Like, he's going to figure out eventually that he doesn't need to have imposter syndrome anymore. Yeah.
You already sound like it, though, in terms of the name of the podcast being CEO Advantage Podcast. We talk about 4 different kinds of CEOs of the professional CEO, the public sector CEO, the intergenerational CEO, and the founder CEO. And you definitely fall into the founder CEO category. Each of them is ultimately responsible, but carries out that duty very differently from each other for different reasons and all of those different things. One's not better than the other, but they're different pathways. What I find interesting, the last two, the intergenerational CEO and the founder CEO, is that with your 3 boys potentially, they're going to have a different CEO journey to yours in that. Is it your dream that the boys would take it over?
No.
Okay.
No. My dream is that they will find their thing to do. If it's this, wonderful. Yeah, if that's what they really want to do, amazing. I want them just to find what really lights them up. Yeah. Sharon, she is like, she loves operating. If she wasn't getting paid, she would still do it. She's just so lit up by it. It's what makes it easy when the phone rings at midnight to get up and go into theatre and save someone's life or not save someone's life, but whatever. But to do the thing that you love.
Yes.
I'd never understood that until it was probably a decade ago now. One time she'd had a massive day and huge night. I was like, how do you do this? And she's like, well, it's just like for you playing basketball. Like, you love playing basketball, don't you? I was like, yeah, I love it. She's like, would you go and do it at any time of the day or night if you could do it at the highest level? I was like, of course I would. If the phone rang and an NBL team said, come and suit up, you're playing tonight, you would like drop everything and go.
Yeah.
She's like, and that's what this is for me. And so my hope for them is that they find that path. Yeah, whatever that might be.
How do you, with your relationship with your partner, when do you find time for each other? With 3 boys, business, and she's obviously on call a lot.
Difficult at the moment. Very difficult at the moment. It's something that we're not doing a great job of, frankly, but it's a season of life. It's a moment in time, 6, 2 and 1. I mean, the only way it gets more intense is if you keep having more kids. So yeah.
Season of time.
I think we both understand it's the season of time, season of life.
Past, cool.
Yeah.
Can we go back a little bit to a big year in your life in business, 2019? Do you want to tell us a bit what happened then?
Yeah, 2019 was a pivotal year for the business. Really interesting. We can talk about this for a long time, but the backstory, I guess, is that we purchased the vineyard property in 2018. So it's a huge.
For our listeners, where is that?
So that's
not everybody's from Adelaide who's listening.
They can just Google Vinteloper. There's only one of us. And on Google Maps, it'll show you exactly where Vinteloper is, but that's in just outside of Loberthal in the Adelaide Hills, beautiful part of the Adelaide Hills wine region. And so for 10 years prior to that, Vinteloper was in inverted commas, a virtual winery. We had no bricks and mortar, which was great for 10 years because you're disrupting and you're doing things in a smarter, more interesting way. But that narrative to your customers about, sorry to make this a really long answer, but when you interact with your customers, one of the first things they want to know is where do you grow your grapes? Mm. And so you can only tell the story for so long that, we don't actually grow any of our own grapes. We buy grapes from specialist grape growers who blah, 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 and so on and so on. So after a decade, we really did, if we were going to seriously keep this thing going and build it, put some skin in the game, which is why I really wanted to do the vineyard thing. So that's the backstory. Mm-hmm. Purchased the vineyard in 2018, spent many thousands of man hours fixing up the worst house in the best street. It was a rundown vineyard, needed a lot of love, but it was in a great location. Did all that work. And then December 2019, we had some very, 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 very hot days and a bushfire started just down the road from us, and it burnt 2/3 of the Adelaide Hills wine region, heaps of vineyards, 83 homes were destroyed in the Adelaide Hills and on Kangaroo Island. 95% of our vineyard was burnt. We had 27,000 vines in the ground. 24,000 vines burnt to the point of being unrecognizable. House burnt down. Pretty pivotal day. That was the 20th of December 2019, the last Friday of the year. We were all out having end of year lunch, and things were going pretty poorly for a lot of people in the Adelaide Hills, including us. Mm. Yeah,
resilience would have been something.
Well, yeah. Let's cut to the chase, I suppose. Unfortunately, when an event like that happens, no one gives you a handbook and says, here's what you need to do, which is still something that's on my to-do list, is to write a handbook for the next time that it happens to someone. But huge, huge unknowns. For the next week, maybe more, the head is just spinning. Do we even have a business now?
And it's Christmas and New Year and everything else going on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All those stuff. We had a 1-year-old. We were living in Melbourne at the time.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So Sharon and Jensen were in Melbourne. I was back here trying to make sense of all of it. What are we going to do? And I tell this story a lot, right? Because I talk about this a lot. It's part of the resilience story. It's part of business, but it's also a part of wine. When I'm speaking and when I'm engaging with people, it's that story about you just don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It's just there's a great fable about the farmer and the horse, and which you might have heard. It actually features in a Bluey episode if you're so inclined. But the farmer in the village has one horse, and one evening a storm comes and it destroys the stable, and the horse runs away, and everyone in the village is like, what are you going to do? That's so bad. You've lost your horse. Now how are you going to operate your farm? And the farmer says, we'll see. And then the next day the horse returns and brings with it 3 wild horses, and everyone in the village celebrates and says, how amazing. Now you had 1 horse, now you have 4. So great. You're so lucky. And he says, well, we'll see. The next day, the farmer's son is breaking in the wild horses, and the horses buck the son off and he breaks his leg, and everyone in the village is like, oh, now your son's got a broken leg. He can't work on the farm. It's terrible news. What are you going to do? And he says, we'll see. And then where I like to finish the story is the next day, the authorities come around and they're conscripting all the young males to go off and fight in a war. But because the son has a broken leg, he can't go. And so they all say, oh, you're so lucky that you can't go, but we'll see. And so the point is, obviously, we don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. And I'm still not sure about the fire, to be frank with you, because it's obviously devastating. It created for us a huge financial hole to fill, but it also created for us incredible opportunity. We sold more wine in the 7 days after than we probably sold in the whole year prior to that. We gained more customers from the exposure of that story than we'd probably gained for the 3 years prior to that. And we made some really smart choices around how we would interact with those customers in the year following that probably has them, wedded to us for life as customers. So in that regard, that couldn't have happened without those events. So
never waste a good crisis.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. Winston Churchill, I think, said that.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So that was, it's interesting. You started just after what's known as the GFC, the meltdown of 2008, and you're starting a business in 2009. So that's arguably starting at the bottom of the market to right up. Then you buy and hit the bottom again through the fire to climb back up again.
Well, then, of course, COVID turned up right after the fire. So that was...
double whammy.
Yeah, that was a pretty big hit.
So how did you, you're now going from being creative to adaptive, adapting to these different situations. How did COVID affect the way you approached the business?
Again, I think I would tell the same story about you don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. COVID for us, it robbed Peter to pay Paul. It took away our business was built on working closely with on-premise to place our brand in a place that elevated the brand and informed it.
And on-premise disappeared overnight.
Overnight. You can still look back at the budget, and our March 2020 number in Victoria was, I remember we sold $800 worth of wine in a whole month in Victoria.
Did you have a good website back then?
Well, you know what? Fortunately, we did, because, and this is just the most fortunate part of my interest in IT and websites and creativity and design, was that we had a wonderful website before the fire. And man, I thank my lucky stars for that, because I know other wineries who were impacted who didn't. And they were just simply unable to take customers' money. And if honestly, if it wasn't for that, we would not be sitting here today. Every single time someone bought wine on my website, my phone went ding. And for those 7 days, it would not stop dinging. And it was every single one of those that pushed us forward to keep going. Me personally, as the founder, right, gave me the energy to be like, well, imposter syndrome, just sit down for a minute. We've got a business here. People like it. They want to support us. They want us to continue. And so COVID was the same. I had heaps of confidence, and we had the retail side of things set up. And so that's where I'm saying we lost all this wholesale business, but all of a sudden, people buying wine, getting it shipped to their door, we all did it. And we were set up to execute, and we executed. And so there was heaps of nervous times, right? And, got to sit the staff down and be like, hey, look, I don't know if you're going to have a job going forward, but we're going to try everything we can to keep this thing going. And so, yes, we survived. It was a period where, it was like, this is great. And probably for 2 years post-COVID, I just really enjoyed how one of the things that I loved about COVID, which sounds quite sick actually, but you can all relate to this, everyone in the room, it completely obliterated everyone's barriers to spending money online into e-commerce. E-commerce just became like, well, that's what you have to do. And then one of the biggest challenges with wine is, how do you sell someone a bottle of wine if they've never tasted it?
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, everyone's drinking lots of wine and COVID's happening and I can't go taste it, so I'm just going to buy it. And that lasted for a couple of years, and it allowed us to recruit customers, and we, worked pretty hard to try and retain them.
Mm-hmm.
And are you finding that it's staying there, or and is being augmented by in person, or are people slipping back into old way? What are you seeing?
It's not what it used to be. E-commerce for us is not what it used to be, but we've found our natural level, I think, where we're back to, I guess we're back to our quorum of really regular, solid customers, and we're still acquiring new customers, but it's, there was a time when resistance was so low, you could just recruit. I think cost of living crisis is impacting every business, but especially discretionary spend of our level. So we're not at a everyday wine level. We're a bit above that. I think, we're probably getting squeezed right where we are, but yeah, it's, I would like that side of the business to do better, to be better. I think it's hard to look at budgets and spreadsheets and go, man, why were we doing those numbers 3 years ago and we can't do them now? But that's the way business goes.
It's surprising, isn't it, how much, I mean, you live and breathe this stuff, Millie, but I think lots of people are learning to appreciate, when in this data conversation, we're talking about data, and the data itself doesn't matter, but the insights gained from the data and the science of marketing, whether it's wine or e-commerce around building your customer base, getting them to come back, increasing their spend, share of wallet when they've got other choices, all of those things. There's now lots of data and analytics that you've actually got to get across and watch, and your return on ad spend, knowing where to place your ads and when to place them. And even now with AI, on one hand, AI helping you search for words and optimize your words. But if everyone's doing it, it's not optimizing. So you have a rush of keywords working for a minute, and then they die off as AI catches on to that and dies off. It's a really fast moving feast, isn't it? The e-commerce part.
Huge. Yeah, really tough to follow and changing all the time. And I recently heard a stat that only 18% of all search is owned by Google now. So if you're an e-commerce business who's putting all of your eggs in the basket of, we're going to do Google AdWords and analytics, well, you could be leaving 72% of customers on the table. It's terrifying.
So what are some of your strategy and tactics that you and the team are doing to, you said e-commerce is not performing as well as it did a couple of years ago. So what are you now doing to attract new customers, build the loyal customers? What are you doing?
I think it's the culture piece. That's where I would go with that. If you can become the one of my goals for the next 5 years is to become, I want to make it an attainable goal, right? So not the best known, but I want to become a known and trusted brand of quality. And so all the touch points that you spoke about before, about, with our culture and our language and our values coming across to our customers, it's a big focus. It's about saying what other people are not willing to say, doing what other people are not willing to do for your customer or around your customer, informing your brand in a way that others are not doing it. And so that's where the tasting room and the social voice and the direct to customer voice and the building the key holders, which is our wine club, they all come together at that sort of, the Venn diagrams all cross over in that culture piece and building that trust.
Let's talk about your culture, because I feel like we haven't touched on it yet. Is this sense of play that is a big part of your culture? So can we talk about your tagline and how that came about and how you basically are encouraging your team to tap into their child play?
before we came up with the tagline, we already had the basics of it. Like the behaviors were already being exhibited in the business, and this stuff all came about when I touched on in 2015. I did some deep work around entrepreneurship and values and all that sort of stuff, and a big part of that was sort of identifying, all the stuff that people do. Identify your USP. I touched on it before. Break down buyers' resistance, increase buyers' acceptance. Fish where the fish are, essentially, right? So, when you put that all into a blender and you buzz it all up, what you end up with is a business that talks to people in real language about real things. Wine, in particular, is so intimidating for everyone. It doesn't matter where you are on your wine journey. You're not an expert. There's someone out there who knows more than you, and it might be the person that you're talking to. So there's inherently this kind of like caution, anxiety around wine. And so one of the USPs that I identified was like, hey, well, if you just be real and talk to people, and you can be an expert, but you don't have to tell them that you're the expert. They might figure it out by how much fun you're having and how much passion you have for the craft, and how detailed you can be in the way that you dive into it. And the other USP we identified then and play on since then, and you can see it in our comms and in our website and in everything we do. There's nothing that feels more devaluing as a customer than someone treating you like an idiot. And now, how do you get treated like an idiot with wine? Imagine, just forget wine for a second. Imagine I'm holding up a photo. This is the wine tasting experience. We might have talked about this when you came and visited. Imagine I'm holding up a photo and you can see the photo. You know exactly what it looks like, but I just stand here and I just explain to you what this photo looks like. Like, you would be thinking, I can see the photo. Do you think I'm an idiot? Like, so we understand that, and we don't do that. When we talk about wine, we talk about the way that it feels, the way that it should feel. We put you in the place. Yeah, some of the facts are important, but it's all about the feelings. That's what sells. Yeah. That's what sells. And I learned that then in 2015 about the educator who was giving us this, taking us through this stuff, talked about red brain, and green brain. And shout out to Pete Lakovich if he's out there, and he might see this and listen to this one day. But the green brain stuff is all the go. It's the green light. It's the feeling. It's the passion. It's the stuff that connects people. The red light is all the facts. It's all of the stuff, and it's it's the classic iPhone versus Samsung. If you go back to 2015, and if you look at an ad for an iPhone and you look at an ad for what are they called? Galaxy phones. Sure. Back then the iPhone ad was all about, I can take a video of my kid taking their first steps, and the Samsung Galaxy ad was all about how the processor was this, and the camera had this many megapixels, and the screen was this size. And so you've got feelings on one side, which sells people, and you've got facts on this side, which, does that really motivate people?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's the old sales training from way back in the 80s that sort of said people buy on emotion and justify with logic. So if you're trying to sell with logic, don't expect to sell.
Yeah.
And it's that green and red brain part, but it is also that again, that old, you're talking about the price point as well, where again that old maxim of value will remain long after the price will be forgotten if the value remains. Mm-hmm. So if the focus on if you have to convince somebody of the value as opposed to invite them to decide for themselves, which is that if I'm holding up the picture and telling you what you should value, that's not going to connect. Mm-hmm. But if you're holding up the picture and asking questions and tapping into curiosity, people will lean in and you'll discover new ways that you're adding value that you didn't even know, because it didn't matter that you think it's valuable. It only matters that they do. And it's a beautiful, again, that culture of curiosity, and you can see it. Vinteloper invites people to have a view about them.
We do. Yeah, we definitely do. I don't know if I answered your question particularly well, but it all comes together in the culture, right? Mm-hmm. So that approach, the way that we communicate, it attracts certain types of people, certain types of customers, but then again, it attracts certain types of employees. Mm-hmm. And I feel very blessed to have attracted them. In the full-time team at Vinteloper, my shortest serving employee is 4 years, and my longest is more than 10 years. Unheard of, isn't it, these days, to have, particularly with a small team. And it's because we're people first. It's people first, skills second. You can't teach someone to have the right culture and have the right fit and have the right energy. You just can't. So there's a little magnetic universe that exists around the way that we establish the values, establish what is the USP, what is the language we use, that attracts not only the customers but the right people to continue to grow it, I think.
Do you think it's a lot easier to set the culture from a founder CEO versus a professional CEO?
100%. I found, like it's 100% founder-led businesses nail this typically, and professional CEO businesses routinely get it wrong, or even worse, which we've all probably seen in our business journey. The founder CEO business hands over to the professional CEO and just watches it burn to the ground.
So how can a professional CEO learn from a CEO like
I don't know. I'm not a professional CEO.
but let's say a professional CEO has got a culture problem in their company. What advice would you give them?
Well, you don't have a business if you don't have people. You've got to put your people first. Yep. Yeah. You've got to put your people before your shareholders. You've got to put your people before your customers. Yeah, which is easy for me to sit here and say because I am a founder and I do that. But I make, maybe to put it in more real terms, as the leader, as the founder CEO, I'm constantly making compromises today for the success of tomorrow. And if you're not willing to make those, if you're not willing to take those risks and take those gambles, then don't be surprised if you don't make the success happen tomorrow or next year or next quarter, next year, 5 years from now.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said around the culture and the messaging that comes from, the old saying of fish stinks from the head down. But that cultural piece around, for 18.5 years, I'd go to every induction at SYC and say, look, if you don't like this, what we do here is not about you. So just so you know, like, we care about you, but this is not about you. But if you need a new desk because you think you need one, let us know and we'll get you one. If you're still not happy with it, we'll help you find people with desks you like. Because this is the real focus here is about being of service. And if that's not what you bring, we'll try and teach it to you. If you still don't want it, you'll need to leave. And being unashamed about that and not mean about it. We weren't saying it didn't mean you were not good enough. It just meant that you didn't match here. And the other part that we did was talk about the 3 ways to get thrown out, of course, which was if you're spectacularly incompetent, we don't need you. And we'll find that out. But, work really hard and learn really hard. We probably won't find out that you're incompetent. But if it turns out you are, we don't need you. If you want to cheat and lie or steal or whatever, we really don't need you, so you'll leave. But they're pretty obvious reasons to get thrown out. The third reason used to befuddle people a little bit to start with. We said the third way to get kicked out is gossip about your work colleagues, because there's nothing worse than being in an organisation where we want you to give everything to the customers. We want it to not be about you. But the minute gossip starts, it becomes about you, because now you're wondering what people are saying. And if you're not talking about, if you and I are gossiping, David's watching going, are they going to talk about me when I leave? It makes it unsafe. And so that culture of, and you have to execute it. You have to push people out of the organisation if and when they do it. And we used to get people say, can you really fire people for gossiping? We go, let's give it a new word. Workplace bullying, do you reckon we can do it for that? And they'd be like, oh, shit. Yeah. It's like, cool. So, but I 100% agree with you. I think good people who are really competent, really motivated, who feel safe and heard will do extraordinary things for customers. That they'll do for customers that you didn't tell them to do. They just will do it. Yeah. But in the absence of that, it's amazing how people go, my staff don't, Qantas staff, from time to time you go, I used to get in trouble all the time going, this person just starts with no. Ask a question, no. There's a default answer. It's like, well, you know what? Culturally, that's coming from the top.
Yeah.
How do you start with Vinteloper? People start with yes.
Of course we do. Yeah.
With everything, because you start with yes.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah. David, you've had a really bad day. The kids, you haven't slept. Kids are a bit ratty.
Every day.
Customers, you've had a grumpy customer. So it's just one of those days where it's like, oh my goodness, this has just not been a good day. And then a song comes on the radio that you hear that no matter how grumpy you are and tired you are, you can't not smile because of it. Even when you want to stay mad, you can't when this song comes on. What's your song?
I have a very weird, eclectic taste in music, so it will probably not be a song that anyone's ever heard before.
Yeah.
There's a good electronic duo called the Lovebirds, and they have a song called "I Want You in My Soul." So you can look that one up on Spotify. Yeah. Just put that on and tell me if you can stop tapping your foot. I promise you won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my weird one. If I give you one that people probably know more. I mentioned it before, the OJs, give the people what they want.
Yeah.
So you can't hear that song and not feel good about it,
Cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Listen.
I think people will listen to David Bowley and Vinteloper podcast and they'll just feel good. It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
You've got a wonderful energy about you, and it comes through in your business, but clearly it comes through in everything you do. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Really enjoyed the chat. This honesty that you've really shared today has just been beautiful. So thank you.
You're welcome. I hope people get something out of it.
Yeah. They certainly will. Thank you.
Thanks.